Hey, welcome back to Business 163, Personal Finance. We're now in video number 3 in our module on housing, and we are building off the heels of our second video where we were dealing with the question of should we rent or buy, and if we answered rent, well, there's the second video. But now in this third video, let's say that we are going to answer the question, we're going to buy a home. Well, as you can see here from the title slide, in this video we want to deal with some home buying basics. If you've never bought a home before, it can feel like a pretty extraordinarily scary, daunting process. Where do we start? And so this video is intended as just an introduction to sort of get you some sea legs as you consider thinking about buying a home. Alrighty, so first things we should acknowledge. For most of us, buying a home will be the largest single personal purchase we will ever make. That's not true for everyone, but for very, very many of us, that's certainly true, especially if you're buying here in Northern California, right? And so because it's such a large single purchase, there are some very important long-term considerations that you should try to answer before you decide what and where you want to buy. Here's some of just some of them. How long do I plan to stay in the house? What do I think for me and mine? How long will we end up staying in this house? And what are some other life plans that might intersect with our being at this address, whatever address that may end up to be? For instance, will there be career growth, perhaps significant career growth that you are hoping for and anticipating? Or perhaps even a job change on the horizon? Or if you aren't yet married, would you be getting married? And what implication might that have on where you choose to live? Are you planning to have children? And what will that impact in terms of where you choose to live, right? Those are some big life-changing events that you should consider alongside all of the other things you're considering if you're thinking about buying a home. Now, some things to understand here. Location matters. Unlike renting a home, once you buy a home, it's not very mobile. You're not going to quickly be able to change addresses. Moving is not nearly as fast or as easy as when you choose to rent. And therefore, what are some of the things that are affected, that affect the price tag of a home? Well, here's one, your zip code, right? Zip codes, cities make a big difference. Right? There's an enormous and significant difference between living in an address like Mill Valley and living in an address like, say, Petaluma. Both may be lovely, wonderful, safe communities, but there's going to be a significant difference in purchase price simply because of location. Right? Now, even within the same zip code, price tags are also affected by the schools, the public schools, that certain addresses feed into, because there are some public schools with much better reputations than others. And so many times what happens is that families with children are looking to get their kids into the desirable schools, which is darn near impossible if you don't live at the right address. And so those addresses that feed into the desirable skills, the prices escalate steeply, as opposed to perhaps a just as nice or even a better house that's in a not such a desirable school feeding district, right? And then finally, price tags are affected by neighborhood history and reputation, right? And so you will find that there are occasionally a few neighborhoods here in the Bay Area that don't have the greatest long-term reputation in terms of perhaps criminal activity or safety, and so that depresses home values, whereas others that are known to be wonderful, safe communities, that the homes are kept lovely, perhaps there's a strong homeowners association that enforces those kinds of things, that price tags are affected by that in a positive direction, right? So just realize location matters more than perhaps most first-time buyers ever really initially anticipate because of all these kinds of factors. So that's number one. Number two, what type of a dwelling are you looking to buy? You could buy a single-family home, a house like on the picture on the left, or you might be looking to buy a condominium, a unit within a condominium community like the illustration on the right of this slide, right? It looks physically perhaps a little bit like an apartment in an apartment complex, but really you are buying the property, or at least the airspace between the walls, and therefore as a condominium you actually own something there rather than simply renting, right? Well, those are different types of dwellings that you can buy, and others include things like townhomes, or what are sometimes known as zero lot line houses, which are typically houses with very small yards, if any, or perhaps the lot lines truly are zero lot lines where your property line butts up against your neighbor and you have no backyard. Or perhaps a dwelling in a new home community or in an older established neighborhood. There's lots of things to consider in terms of what kind of a dwelling and community that you want to live in. Another consideration, what about the size? How many bedrooms and bathrooms? How many stories? How many square feet? And I've intentionally given you a photo of what we typically nowadays call a tiny house. You can tell, but with the little bicycle, parked up against it, just how small that little guy is. That's a very small little house. Well, how much square feet do you want? How much square feet do you need? What are you looking for, right? As well as, what's the flow or the physical layout of the floor plan? Is it something you can live with, right? There are homes, for instance, which are built on multiple levels, like tri-level homes. And while that can be very dramatic in terms of physical appearance and aesthetic, they may or may not be the most practical kind of a home to live in, because you're constantly having to climb up flights of stairs in order to get from one level to the other. These are all the kinds of things that you need to consider as you begin to go out looking for homes. And finally, what's the physical condition of the homes you're interested in? It may be pristine, as you can see the photo on top, or it may be something a little less than pristine. You can tell from the photo on the bottom there, right? And these are the kinds of things that, does the home appear to have what we sometimes affectionately call the need for deferred maintenance? Sometimes properties crumble over time with a lot of repairs that need to be made to make the thing livable, right? These are the kinds of things that will be revealed typically by a home inspection, or sometimes just by a careful eye as you tour properties. You can see little telltale signs of things that need to be fixed. What's the condition of the roof? Does all the plumbing work? Does there appear to be any interior or exterior damage that seems like something that might need to be repaired? And of course, the more experience you have looking at properties, the more your eye will see those kinds of things. And if you're not really experienced, it may pay to bring along someone with an eye for that, or to schedule a home inspection for a property if you really are interested in purchasing it. But these are all the kinds of things, just as the basics, before we even talk about the financial implications of a mortgage loan and a large purchase price. These are the kinds of basic considerations that you want to start rolling around in your head if you are contemplating buying a home. All of these things matter. And even more, right? There's certainly more that we will give you to read and research in the module if you are considering buying a home. But these gives you at least some basics to think about as we will turn to the financial aspects of this kind of thing in the next video. Alrighty? So I hope that's helpful, especially for you if you haven't bought a home yet and you're considering that in your future. Some things for you to be thinking about and to be keeping in the back of your head. Alrighty? Hope that's helpful. We'll see you in the next lecture.